You've probably read and are familiar with the classic work The Alchemist asterisk, but perhaps you didn't know that the author of this book, which has touched millions of hearts, was awakened by another masterpiece, Siddhartha asterisk, by the renowned German writer Hermann Hesse. He first encountered Siddhartha in 1967 when he was 20 years old, having been sent to a mental hospital by his parents. He was unaware that, beyond the bars of his room's window, this very book was igniting the passion of an entire generation. These were the words he wrote about Siddhartha asterisk. He found enlightenment after reading the book and was released from the mental hospital a few days later. Even Carl Jung, the father of psychology, likened Siddhartha to a lighthouse in a stormy night. But for Hesse, when writing this novel, it wasn't merely about redeeming the world, it was also about his own self-healing. In 1919, he wrote Siddhartha but prior to that, he had endured a period of immense suffering during the outbreak of World War I due to his anti-war stance. He was ostracized by society and shunned by his colleagues. Misfortune continued to strike him relentlessly over the next few years. His father tragically passed away, and his beloved young son also left him due to a severe illness. His wife, unable to cope with the shock, was hospitalized. Economic hardship and a broken marriage, these relentless blows, plunged him into a state of mental collapse and depression. He even contemplated suicide. Fortunately, much like the protagonist Siddhartha in his novel, he was saved just in time. Through countless long nights, the author gained profound insight into the human soul and gradually discovered a truth of life. One must penetrate the deepest recesses of the soul to truly find one's own meaning and then attain liberation. Carrying that philosophical contemplation, Siddhartha a work embodying all bewilderment, the search for answers, all seeing, and all enlightenment, was born. At first glance, you might think Siddhartha is a story about the Buddha, as Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism, shares the name. But in truth, it's a profound philosophical book that borrows the cloak of Buddhism. All of us can see fragments of our own lives in every step of the young Siddhartha's journey of searching, experiencing, awakening, and maturing. Truly, anyone who fully comprehends this book will find answers to their own life's questions. How, ultimately, should one live? How can one live a truly complete and fulfilling life? And how can one awaken? Through this book, you might find a solution, a meaningful insight for yourself. I invite you to listen to today's sharing, titled 3 Things One Must See in This Life, through the immortal novel Siddhartha by the brilliant author Hermann Hesse. See yourself, recognize limitations, and seek transformation. It is said that some people are born on the finish line of life, a position many yearn for. The protagonist of the novel, Siddhartha, was such a person. Born into a noble Brahmin family in ancient India, he seemed to have everything perfectly. A prestigious family, a handsome appearance, profound education, and the admiration of thousands of women. Everyone loved and respected Siddhartha, but he himself felt tormented. His suffering stemmed from being a Brahmin disciple, yet failing to achieve his ultimate goal, Atman. Atman is the most fundamental concept in Indian philosophy, meaning the eternal self, soul, and breath. It refers to one's true, eternal core. Thus, his heart was constantly restless and bewildered by an intense longing. His self had to be a complete, absolute, and transcendent existence. Therefore, Siddhartha decided to abandon everything he had and, with his friend Govinda, follow the samanas, becoming an ascetic monk to attain enlightenment. He had to learn to renounce all worldly desires, overcome painful hunger and exhaustion. He ignored the scorching sun, the freezing rain, and even thorns piercing his flesh. After 3 years of such ascetic practice, his friend Govinda felt very satisfied, having learned many things. But Siddhartha felt he had made no real progress beyond learning endurance. He realized that asceticism was merely an escape from reality, a temporary sedative to avoid suffering. In his sorrow, he met the Buddha, Gautama. Standing before the Buddha, who had perfected his merits and attained the eternal self-state, thousands of Brahmin disciples arduously pursued. His good friend Govinda decided to follow the master to practice. But Siddhartha chose to leave alone. He stated that the secrets, enlightenment, and wisdom that the Buddha himself had experienced could not be taught to anyone. Therefore, I will continue on my own path and walk towards my own liberation. Knowledge can be taught, but wisdom can only be realized by oneself. Just as the psychological phenomenon of the Barnum effect shows, we are easily distracted by external information, accustomed to seeing ourselves through the eyes of others, and thus cannot truly see ourselves. We readily read and absorb the thoughts of outsiders, but those thoughts merely become reflections of others, never truly our own. We never see ourselves because we constantly try to directly apply others' ideas to decorate our own minds. As this book states, most people are like falling leaves, tumbling in the air, eventually returning to dust. Very few are like stars in the sky, moving in a fixed orbit, unshaken by any wind, because they live seeing themselves, living by their own internal laws and traces. If you wish to achieve true transformation, you must see yourself, break free from the ego, and, in each breakthrough of life's game, find awakening. I know that being dissatisfied with oneself, constantly questioning, and venturing forth by all means to find answers is a very difficult process. It can even cause immense discomfort. But only by daring to open the gaps in reality can one follow the light and step into a larger world. As Sakura once said, to live the most fulfilling life, it's important to recognize the limitations in your current life and then find ways to overcome them. See yourself first to become aware of the narrowness of your thoughts. Discovering limitations in understanding is the first step towards transforming yourself. See the world. Meet people to cultivate the heart, encounter events to cultivate character. After bidding farewell to Govinda and the Buddha, Siddhartha embarked on a journey to seek worldly wisdom. He eagerly experienced mundane life, learning the art of love from the courtesan Kamala and how to earn money from the wealthy merchant Kamaswami. At this point, he maintained vigilance, believing everything was merely a game. However, human forgetfulness always prevails quietly and easily. As his senses were deceived by the frenzy of reality, Siddhartha's soul became lost. He could no longer control himself, sinking into worldly pleasures and idleness, engulfed by possessive greed and an insatiable desire. He constantly sought excitement, striving for more intoxication and daydreams in a dull life, becoming addicted to gambling and no longer favoring generosity and compassion for beggars as he once did. Someone once said that human desire is like toothpaste. Once squeezed out, it's very difficult to put back in. As you can see, inflated desire has caused many people on Earth to lose themselves, falling into endless greed from which they cannot escape. Siddhartha initially chose to flee from desire, yet unexpectedly, he ultimately became the very person he had most scorned in his youth. Therefore, one day, without a word of farewell, he went to the riverbank, intending to throw himself in and bid farewell to the mortal realm. But as he stepped into the water, a voice from the depths of his heart suddenly awakened him. I had to experience greed, pursue wealth, fall into the abyss of despair, and learn to resist them. Learn to accept the nature of the world and rejoice in belonging to it. As Thoreau wrote, I believe that nothing passes away without leaving a trace, for in our present and future lives, our slightest steps have meaning. No effort in this life is wasted. All past experiences are essential practice in our lives. Every moment of delusion is practice, every moment of awakening is practice, every joy and sorrow is practice, every beginning and end is practice. Life is often like this. If you haven't experienced it, you certainly won't understand. Many still lament that they've heard these teachings too often, yet their lives remain miserable. But you need to understand that truth is not just for hearing. Without experiencing pain, there will be no profound realization. Wealth can be earned, knowledge can be learned, but experience cannot be transmitted. You must explore and seek it yourself to acquire it. A writer once said, "Life is a practice ground. No matter how many methods you have, you must practice them in reality. Without falling flowers and flowing water, how can there be the earth? Without challenges in the human world, how can one reach maturity and transformation? Therefore, you must step out, go forth, and experience to see the world, to meet people to cultivate your heart, and to encounter events to cultivate your character." As Thoreau said in Walden, Living Alone in the Woods, life isn't about how much you acquire, but how much you experience. A person is truly the sum of all past experiences. I am all the people I have interacted with, the things I have encountered, the joys I have felt, the pain I have tasted, and I am who I am now. Without experience, there will never be realization. Life is a journey of experience, and the world we live in is the best school for you to practice. See all beings, accept and let everything unfold naturally. After his awakening, Siddhartha walked along the river and met the ferryman. He decided to stay and learn to row from him. The ferryman, like a profound sage, told Siddhartha that the river knows everything. He could learn everything from the river. Siddhartha often sat by the river, releasing extraneous thoughts, listening to the flowing water, until one day, a weary woman wishing to cross the river stirred up the quiet waters. That woman was Kamala, Siddhartha's former lover. When Siddhartha left, she had been pregnant and gave birth to his son, left her profession, and dedicated herself to Buddhism. This time, she was taking her son on a pilgrimage, and unexpectedly, she met Siddhartha. Tragically, before they could exchange more than a few words, Kamala was bitten by a venomous snake and died. Before her last breath, she entrusted the child to Siddhartha with difficulty. He watched his former love slowly lose her vitality and recalled her beautiful face from their youth, feeling intensely the impermanence of the world. The appearance of his son awakened an unprecedented love within Siddhartha. He tried his best to cherish and care for the boy, attempting to win the child's heart. However, facing a strange father and impoverished circumstances, Siddhartha's son resisted fiercely. He was indifferent, lazy, and even declared he'd rather be a murderer and go to hell than be with this man called father. The child wanted to leave. The ferryman advised Siddhartha that everyone must go through life alone, and children have their own paths. But Siddhartha refused to listen. He worried about his son and insisted on keeping the child to protect him. As a result, after a fierce struggle, the child slipped away. One morning, a heartbroken Siddhartha tried to catch up with his son, but as he ran, he suddenly recalled the situation from his youth when he had forced his own father to agree to let him leave to pursue spiritual practice. How similar that past situation seemed to the present. Life, it seemed, was like a cycle of reincarnation. All unredeemable sorrows would return. Overwhelmed, Siddhartha returned to the river and listened to its ceaseless flow of wisdom, day and night. Previously, he had always insisted on distinguishing different sounds from the water. The laughter of the wise, the shouts of the angry, the cries of the longing, the moans of the dying, 1,000 bustling voices disturbing the human mind. But now, no longer obsessed with a specific sound, he listened to everything. He saw that all joys and sorrows, laughter and tears, merged into one. Siddhartha decided not to fight fate. He realized that if he couldn't let go of his ego, he would never find freedom in life. He understood his son's rebellion, escape, and choices. Then, like a river holding 1,000 voices, he accepted and embraced, compatible with all the imperfections before him. True awakening, amidst the chaotic dream of the world, is to let everything unfold naturally, as its inherent path. Everyone in this world is like a flower, but ultimately, all are swept away by the wind in different directions. Everyone has their own path. Those who leave don't cling, and those who come don't overstay. Live with awareness and equanimity so that unwillingness becomes willingness, misfortune becomes happiness, nothing can become everything, and you can release all attachments in your heart. Since its publication in 1922, Siddhartha has been translated into countless languages, and innumerable people consider it a spiritual destination. This is because we can see ourselves in Siddhartha's journey through life. From recognizing his own limitations and boldly venturing onto a path of discovery in his youth, to pursuing fame and material wealth while witnessing all gains and losses in middle age, and finally achieving complete enlightenment by understanding that if one's heart is at peace, every moment in life can be complete. Life must be a continuous journey of self-knowledge. When you let your eyes see everything, when your sails can fill every direction, you will see all the dust and ultimately understand what this vast world truly means to you, opening up awakening within yourself. You need to know that we are our own origin and destination. When we immerse ourselves, personally experience life, and love life, what we have will be a meaningful life. The author knew that truth, even its opposite, is also truth. Love or hate, good or bad, gain or loss, life or death, presence or absence, past, present, or future, they are all a complete and unified existence within each of us. Let go of the obsessions and prejudices packaged as desire to pursue and possess. Go forth personally to experience, explore, and love this complex, yet wonderfully inclusive world. and a little off-topic share about the symbolic meaning of the river in the work. Surely many of you, after reading this book, will wonder what great wisdom the river holds that could lead Siddhartha to enlightenment, to become a Buddha. It's because the river flows endlessly, yet it is always there. It is always there. At any moment, it is the same, yet completely new in each instant. The river's water is both immutable and constantly renewing. Clearly, this characteristic of the river encapsulates the essence of the two selves within a human being, the individual ego and the eternal self. It is immutable because the eternal self is always the same, and it is constantly renewing because the individual self is always changing. As it is often said, a person exists only when they change, and only by constantly maintaining that non-change do they exist. So what is change, and what is immutable? The moment is eternal, while time is the junction of all change and immutability. Once the subject no longer perceives the existence of time, on the plane of thought, it not only unifies the two opposing selves, but also dissolves the differences in the world. This means that, at every moment, the world now is a harmonious and unified whole in his eyes. And finally, to conclude today's video, I will use a quote from the book to share with all of you. I no longer compare this world with the perfect world I had wanted. I accept this world, I love it, and I belong to it. Thank you for listening. If you found this video helpful, please share it with those who need it. Don't forget to personally ponder and reread this immortal novel. I am confident that at each different stage of your life, each reading will bring a unique insight. May all of us awaken, live fully, and finally, don't forget to support Chillify by hitting the like button, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell to catch my latest weekly videos. Thank you and see you in the next videos.